So, there are basically two types of twist endings in movies. Type 1 is the twist ending that is completely narratively satisfying. A narratively satisfying twist is one where all the clues are right in front of you, and when the reveal happens, you have this sense of either I should have known, or I knew it. It's like the answer was on the tip of your tongue, and a well-written and well-paced twist of this nature is perfectly timed so that the movie reveals it just before the audience would have figured it out on their own. These type of twists are a lot more challenging for the writer. They have to be able to provide hints throughout the story without ever fully giving it away. For this type of twist, there has to be a strong sense of narrative consistency. A great example of this is the movie The Sixth Sense. If you somehow go into this movie with zero knowledge that it has a twist ending and just think it's a spooky movie about ghosts, the end of film reveal about Bruce Willis's character is extremely effective. And if you go into The Sixth Sense knowing there is a twist but not knowing what it is, you would probably be able to guess what it is before the reveal. And it recontextualizes everything you have seen up until that point in a way that makes sense. You don't feel like you've been cheated by the movie. Instead, you feel like that makes sense, like you had a suspicion something wasn't quite right, even if you couldn't put your finger on it. This twist ending was so good it ended up cursing M. Night's career. Now whenever he releases a movie, people expect a big major twist, and I think sometimes M. Night just wants to make a trashy movie with crazy old people, but everyone is like, what's the twist gonna be? And, well, I guess that movie does have a twist, but I don't think it's meant to be shocking or surprising. The reveal in The Visit is mostly just to set the stakes going into the third act. I don't think it's meant to be a big shocking twist, but because it's M. Night, people have this expectation that there will be a huge twist, and then people are disappointed by what is, in my opinion, a fun enough trashy B-movie about killer old people. Anyway, the second type of movie twist is the random one. For this type of twist, you can guess it, especially if it is built around a cliche of the genre. But because it is completely, essentially random and not really set up at all, you may as well be guessing anything. Now, these type of twists can still work in the moment, particularly if they are delivered with style. It is usually on rewatch where you start to go, wait, does it make sense for the character to be acting this way given what we know is revealed later in the story? Some examples of this are the Nina Myers twist in the first season of 24. They did some fun stuff with her character in later season, but on rewatch of season 1, the way she acts in scenes where she is completely alone doesn't really fit with what is revealed about her character later in the story. There's also the guy who wasn't General Hux in The Rise of Skywalker, who seems to be trying his best to make the invisible audience on the other side of the fourth wall think he is the rebel spy, only for it to be revealed that Hux is the rebel spy.
I am the spy.
And then this guy's odd behavior just kind of stops and he settles into generic bad guy mode. Also in The Rise of Skywalker, the whole Palpatine is alive again and tending to his crop of Snoke's reveal might be the most narratively unsatisfying twist in any film ever, and it's delivered with zero style to make up for it. Just clumsily dropped in the opening text crawl and then an awkward dialogue exchange.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
The Star Wars saga, of course, features one of the most famous twists in film history.
Luke, I am the Father.
No!
It is also a twist that really isn't set up all that much narratively. All we know of Luke's father, up until this point, is that he was killed by Vader, and that Vader was a former pupil of Obi-Wan's before he turned to the dark side. It's the delivery of the twist and its implications on the story going forward that give it impact. The performances, music, everything comes together to make this an iconic moment. And the thing is, as much as pretentious film snob types might hate it, if a movie delivers its twist with enough style and energy, it can work just as well as one that is narratively set up with the requisite breadcrumbs. There is so much that goes into filmmaking beyond just the writing. Performances by actors can elevate twists and reveals above what is written on the page, and music and editing can get the audience's heart pounding even if what is happening isn't all that special on a narrative level. The best example of this is the twist in the original Saw. And since I'm trying to do this as a numbered list, since that is what you are supposed to do in YouTube videos, Saw is number 1 on my list of movies with twist endings that are amazing, not necessarily because of great writing or anything, but because they are delivered with style. This film and the character of Jigsaw have become such a massive part of horror pop culture over the last 20 years that it is hard to divorce yourself from knowing who Tobin Bell is. But on first viewing of the original Saw, there really is no reason to not just think Zepp the Orderly is the villain of the story. There's absolutely no reason to think a random patient seen on screen for all of 3 seconds is the real Jigsaw.
Oh, jinkies.
The movie doesn't even really bother with leaving out clues or breadcrumbs for the audience. And it doesn't matter. When they take out the bad guy and find the tape recorder, the music kicks in. It's perfect. It's pure cinema. You get this fun montage of random lines of dialogue. The music is incredible and iconic, and it tricks your brain into thinking that what is happening is more than the sum of its parts. And I'm not insulting the movie. I think this ending totally works in the moment, and it belongs on any list of best twist endings, along with films like Seven and Psycho, and Saw got there without needing to create an actually narratively satisfying twist. Saw got there with style and style alone. Number 2 on my list is The Usual Suspects, similar to The Sixth Sense. The Usual Suspects is a movie that has become a bit of a victim of how well known its twist ending is. There's also the valid point that The Usual Suspects is effectively just a story about a criminal who lies to the police. The movie also has really great characters and memorable dialogue.
Give me the fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker!
Knock it off. Get back. Number 3, step forward.
How many keys, you cocksucker?
In English, please.
Excuse me.
But yes, it is effectively a movie about a criminal lying to police. The ending is incredible though. That montage of the falling coffee cup with the overlapping dialogue is pure style. Now, I think you could probably have done this reveal with less style, and it still would have clicked on a narrative level, but the reason it is so memorable is all in how it is delivered. The twist ending of The Usual Suspects is so perfect in its style that it even works as the ending to Scary Movie. There's probably at least one guy out there who has never even heard of The Usual Suspects but has seen Scary Movie and feels slightly embarrassed when someone asks him what his favorite movie ending is and he wants to say, Scary Movie? And to this guy, wherever you are, I want to say, you have nothing to be embarrassed about. The ending of Scary Movie actually is one of the best movie endings of all time, and it doesn't matter that the ending is lifted from The Usual Suspects and just a parody of The Usual Suspects because the ending works here too. Scary Movie is number 3. Number 4, Fight Club. The movie Fight Club opens with a flash forward to the climax of the story where the narrator is at the mercy of a man named Tyler Durden who has rigged a building to explode. Then we jump back in time a few months to see how the narrator got to this point. Turns out he's a successful yet miserable guy suffering from insomnia and spending his time visiting support groups for illnesses that he does not have. He then meets Tyler Durden. They start a fight club. It evolves into an organization called Project Mayhem, where Tyler oversees the group and begins spreading chaos, and after a group member is killed, the narrator realizes that he needs to stop Project Mayhem, so he seeks out Tyler, but he can't seem to find the man anywhere until...
What did you just say?
What is wrong with you?
What did you just call me? Say my name.
Tyler Durden.
They're the same person, and this twist is pretty well foreshadowed, more than I think most people suspect on the first time they see the movie. The story is carefully crafted so that the narrator and Tyler rarely speak to each other while others are listening, and when they do have conversations in front of other people, there's a good reason why nobody calls out the narrator on his behavior. And the twist is also foreshadowed throughout the story, with things like Marla complaining about her hot and cold relationship with the narrator. There's even subliminal hints early in the film, sort of like seeing the manifestation of Tyler slowly peeking his way out from the narrator's subconscious. It is the style and energy that this twist is delivered with that really make it memorable though. Number 5, Fallen. Fallen tells the story of a Philadelphia police detective played by Denzel Washington who investigates a series of cryptic riddles at various random murder scenes that all bear a resemblance to those committed by a recently executed serial killer called Edgar Reese. At first, he and his partner Jonesy John Goodman suspect a copycat killer, but things quickly spiral into the unorthodox as John soon discovers that all the clues lead to a mysterious body-shifting entity known as Azazel, and this demon is insanely overpowered. It can just jump from person to person just by touching them. Now, the movie opens with Denzel through voiceover telling us that this is the story of the time he almost died. So, Denzel Washington's character is going to live from the start. After all, he's the one telling the story. So the whole time you're watching the movie, you're wondering how is he possibly going to defeat or even escape this demon that has been established as being so OP. Then Denzel discovers that the demon has one fatal flaw, that it cannot survive without a host for longer than a single human breath, and with that Denzel has a plan. He needs to lure the demon out somewhere completely isolated, then kill the host, with Azazel having no one to jump to in time. So Denzel succeeds in luring him out to the middle of nowhere, succeeds in dealing the demon a fatal blow, and then in a moment of self-sacrifice, Denzel ingests poison, killing himself and the only other potential host anywhere near. But wait, you're thinking, this is the story of how Denzel's character almost died, right? So what happens then? Does he pass out, then gets rescued last minute and given some kind of antidote for the poison after the demon is long dead? Then comes the twist. The demon does possess Denzel, and then when Denzel dies, the demon is forced out, only to possess a nearby cat. Only then do you realize that Fallen isn't the story of the time Denzel almost died, it's the story of the time the demon almost died. The entire story was told from Azazel's perspective. Number 6, Dead Silence. From the director of the original Saw, Dead Silence has a much more classical horror feel, and in my opinion, this is, at least as of right now, James Wan's best movie. I think it is an interesting blend of 70s cinema with modern James Wan style horror and a little bit of classic gothic horror influence. Our main character, who is named James, or Jimmy or something like that, returns to his small childhood hometown after the brutal murder of his wife, Lisa, for which he is the primary suspect, and as such, he is followed by a detective played by Donnie Wahlberg. Jimmy is looking to investigate a mysterious package his wife received before her death, a ventriloquist dummy. It turns out that his hometown, Ravens Fair, had a famous ventriloquist named Mary Shaw, and she was lynched by the town following the disappearance of a young boy. At the request of her will, Mary Shaw was turned into a doll herself and then buried with all 101 of her dolls. Mary Shaw quickly became the subject of local urban legends.
Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. And if you see her in your dreams, be sure you never, ever scream.
Jim first goes to meet with his father and his father's new wife. The twist ending of this one is hard to explain without just showing entire scenes from the movie. It's executed with a lot of style, of course. This is a James Wan movie after all, but unlike Saw, this ending actually fit. Like, if you go back and watch Dead Silence again, you'll realize it's super obvious on second viewing, and not in a way that makes you feel dumb, but you'll just be looking at a certain character and think, that dude is a puppet. I think it manages to stay under the radar for most people because you're not even expecting any kind of twist. The story is mostly a super straightforward ghost/possessed doll type movie. For me, the twist really does elevate this film. For this one, just give it a try. The movie is only like 90 minutes. What else are you gonna do today? Alright, and now for some honorable mentions. Housebound. This is a pretty fun horror comedy out of New Zealand about a woman who finds herself under house arrest in her childhood home. Weird things start happening. Initially it seems like ghosts. The twist is the classic man in the walls. There is a man living in the walls. This one kind of gets overlooked. There were a bunch of movies that all had a twist ending where there's just like a guy secretly living in the walls of the house. One of them was The Boy. Another was Shut In with Naomi Watts. I think that was the movie. Anyway, the point is, at the time of the release of Housebound, I think a lot of people heard about the twist and thought, another movie with a boy living in the walls, really, which is a fair thought, but this one is quite good and worth a watch. Orphan, you think it's a little girl, but it's actually a 35-year-old Ukrainian serial killer. I think this movie is a lot of fun, and the prequel isn't bad, and also has its own twist, and you know what, I might make a full video on the prequel to Orphan. The twist in that movie is interesting, and I think they could have done so much more with it. While I don't think the Orphan prequel is a terrible movie by any means, I think it could have been a lot better if they have kind of milked the twist a little more and done more with it after the initial reveal. With that said, if you've only seen the original Orphan, First Kill is worth a watch. Other honorable mentions include the fifth Final Destination movie, Old Boy, and Radius. There are also some truly amazing movies that are regularly included on lists of films with great twist endings, but I don't really consider their endings to be twists. Like, for some reason, The Truman Show seems to show up on a lot of lists, even though the audience, know what is going on from the start. Also, The Silence of the Lambs and Prisoners, these are two of my favorite movies, but I don't really think of their endings as twist endings. I think there is a difference between just a reveal, like who the killer is in a murder mystery, and a twist. Now, a reveal can be a twist, like finding out who Kaiser Soze is or even who the killers are in the original Scream, but a reveal is not always a twist. A twist needs to primarily give some sense of surprise, and I think it also needs to recontextualize earlier events of the movie to a large degree. In Saw, for example, even though this isn't a narratively satisfying twist in my opinion, and it mostly runs on style, it still heavily recontextualizes early events of the movie, from the dead body on the ground to why Seb was doing what he was doing. I don't know, I could be wrong, maybe I'm an idiot, let me know in the comments, say something. Anyway, for me those are the top 6 best movie twist endings and some honorable mentions, but as you can probably tell by the remaining runtime of this video, there is one more thing I want to talk about. This one is a movie twist that never actually happened.
It never happened.
Now, before I get into this, I will admit that my belief that this twist would have been effective is possibly the result of years of drug and alcohol abuse. That twist is Darth Jar Jar. This is a concept that was originally created by a guy named Lumpawaru, and when I first heard it I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but over time this idea has burrowed into the dark recesses of my brain, and I've started to think it is interesting. I won't go as far as to say it was George Lucas's original intention, though that Jar Jar is the key to all of this clip gets a lot of mileage whenever people discuss this fan theory. Basically, the Darth Jar Jar theory is this: while Jar Jar presents himself as a bumbling fool, this is all just an act. He's pretending to be a harmless dunce, a cowardly lion. The idea is that this is all a deliberate facade on the part of Jar Jar, that he is acting like a bumbling fool in that drunken master sort of way.
How do you know that my dim-witted inexperience isn't merely a subtle form of manipulation used to lower people's expectations, thereby enhancing my ability to effectively maneuver within any given situation?
Over the course of the prequels, Jar Jar has this incredible rise to power. At the end of Phantom Menace, he is promoted to general.
We shall make you Bombard General.
General?
Later in the prequels, he is speaking to the Senate. Check the Jedi hand wave here.
Misa propose that the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
Did you see it? Did you see it? Honestly, rewatching the prequels with the idea that Jar Jar is the real Phantom Menace, that he is secretly an insidious character pulling the strings, it kind of all fits perfectly. Jar Jar isn't in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith much, but his appearances are always pivotal. You even see him just in Palpatine's entourage at one point in Revenge of the Sith. No doubt he is whispering in Palpatine's ear like Wormtongue. Darth Jar Jar would have essentially been the reverse of Yoda. Yoda really comes from a tradition in mythological storytelling, from fairy tales where the hero finds a little creature on the side of the road that seems very insignificant and not very important, but who turns out to be the master wizard. Rewatch Yoda's first few scenes in Empire and tell me there aren't parallels to Jar Jar in Phantom Menace.
Hey! It's my dinner!
How you get so big eating food of this kind?
Listen, friend, we didn't mean to land in that puddle, and if we could get our ship out, we would, but we can't, so why don't you just...
I'll get your ship out.
Hey, get out of there!
No!
Hey, you could have broken this. Don't do that.
I feel like almost any criticism of Jar Jar being too silly to secretly be powerful would be the same criticism you'd get if you found someone who somehow had never heard of Yoda or Star Wars before and showed them the first part of Empire, up until after all the silly Yoda stuff and before the reveal that Yoda is a Jedi Master. Darth Jar Jar also adds another layer to the title, The Phantom Menace. Jar Jar is the Phantom Menace, don't you see? Jar Jar is the key to all of this.
Jar Jar is the key to all this.
Maybe I've lost my mind, but I honestly think this idea has potential. And the sequel trilogy would have been vastly improved if you got rid of Snoke and Palpatine and instead had it be Jar Jar. I think it could have been fun. Star Wars was built around old adventure serials, many of which had somewhat over-the-top plots, and I think in some ways people take Star Wars a little too seriously these days. I love Andor, but I would also be open to more pulpy Star Wars material. To me, one of the first signs that the sequel trilogy wasn't going to be very good was when, during the making of The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams said in an interview that he considered having Jar Jar's corpse in the background of a shot. I just thought that was a really mean-spirited and weird thing to say, like, people hated Jar Jar, but I don't think anyone wanted him to sadistically die. It just made me feel like J.J. Abrams was the wrong guy to make Star Wars. Even back then, I kind of wanted someone at the helm that was a little more open-minded about the prequel trilogy. I didn't know it yet, but I wanted Darth Jar Jar.
He walks alone under the big city lights. He always knows just when the time is right.